Right, before we jump in, a quick but important note. This whole breakdown is based on the incredible analysis done by Alireza Samadiyard, who really did an amazing job piecing together how this near catastrophe unfolded. All right, Section 1, the 500 millisecond mystery. So let's set the scene. It's late March 2024. Everything seems normal, right? The internet's working, servers are doing their thing, and then one developer, a guy named Andrew's friend, spots something really, really small, almost nothing. And that's it. Seriously, no big red flashing alarm, no system crashes, nothing dramatic. Just a half-second lag when he tried to log into a server. I mean, think about it. That's a delay so small you or I would probably just blame our Wi-Fi and get another cup of coffee, right? But friend, he didn't let it go. He started digging, and what he uncovered was, well, it was absolutely staggering. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth could a tiny half-second delay, a little performance hiccup you'd barely even notice, be a warning sign for a potential global catastrophe? Well, let's find out. Okay, Section 2, Anatomy of the Attack. To really get a handle on just how dangerous this was, we've got to follow that 500 millisecond breadcrumb trail. We need to dissect this thing piece by piece. Because this wasn't some clumsy smash and grab job. Oh no, this was, well, it was more like a work of art, a masterpiece of deception. So check this out. This was a multi-stage operation, incredibly sneaky. First, the attacker, going by the name Jia Tan, plays the long game. They gain the community's trust and get rights to actually commit code. Then, the real sneaky part begins. They don't just shove malware in there, no. They hide bits of obfuscated code inside what look like totally harmless test files. After that, they stick a malicious script deep inside the build system. That's the complex engine that turns all the source code into the final program. And here's the kicker. That script only wakes up during the final packaging process to inject the real payload into a core library. The result? The malicious code is only in the final distributed package. It's nowhere to be found in the public code repository where everyone's looking. Absolutely brilliant in a terrifying way. And this is what made it so genius. It created two separate realities. You had the public source code, the stuff on GitHub that developers are reviewing. It's squeaky clean, looks totally safe. But then you have the final package, the thing that millions of servers are actually going to download and install. And that one, it's got the back door. It's like looking at the blueprints for a house, and they look perfect. But the house that actually gets built has a secret hidden door that only the bad guys know about. So how did the payload actually work? Well, this is where it gets super technical and really clever. It used this feature called ifuncs. Now, just think of ifuncs as a kind of traffic cop for code. It lets a program decide at the very last second, hey, should I use this version of a function or that version? The backdoor used this to pull a classic switcheroo. It hijacked the secure functions inside the SSH server, the guardian that handles all the secure logins, and swapped them out with its own malicious versions. This made it just about invisible to most security tools. Okay, Section 3, the patient predator. A technical trick this slick doesn't just happen. The big question is, how did an attacker even get in a position to pull this off? And the answer is pretty chilling. Because this wasn't just about code, it was about people. And it was a plan that was years in the making. Look at this timeline. This wasn't a quick smash and grab. It was a slow, methodical infiltration. Jia Tan shows up way back in 2021, just submitting small, helpful bits of code, being a good citizen. A year later, they're a trusted contributor with more access. By 2023, they're starting to put pressure on the lead maintainer, who, like so many in open source, was clearly overworked and burning out. And then bam. Early 2024, Jia Tan is made a co-maintainer, and they waste no time injecting the backdoor. This is pure social engineering, a long con. When you see this level of patience, this amount of resources, and this kind of technical skill, all the alarm bells in the security world start ringing. It all points to one thing, an APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat. And let's be clear about what that usually means. This wasn't some lone hacker in a basement. This is cybersecurity speak for a very well-funded, highly organized group, almost certainly backed by a government, a nation-state actor. All right, Section 4, a catastrophe averted. So we've got a patient, state-sponsored attacker, and this perfectly hidden backdoor. What was the end game? What could they have actually done? Well, when you understand what was truly at stake here, you'll see just how close we came to an absolute disaster. We're talking about millions upon millions of servers at risk. Why? Because XZUtils isn't some niche app you choose to install. It's a fundamental library for data compression. It's like the pipes inside the walls of the internet. It's part of the basic plumbing of most Linux systems, and that means it's running on a huge number of the servers that power, well, everything. Banks, governments, tech companies, you name it. So if Andrew's friend hadn't noticed that tiny delay, what would have happened? Well, the consequences are just chilling to think about. Attackers could have bypassed SSH authentication on any affected server. That means they could just walk right in the front door without a key. They could have achieved what we call remote code execution, or RCE, which is the holy grail for attackers. It means they can run any command they want on your server. It would have been, quite literally, a secret master key to the internet's most critical infrastructure. And beyond that, the trust at the very heart of all open source software would have been shattered. So we move on to Section 5, the open source dilemma. You know, this whole incident, it wasn't just a bullet dodged. It was a massive, blaring wake-up call for everyone. It shined a spotlight on a deep, systemic problem in the way we build the very software that our entire modern world runs on. And this is maybe the most important lesson of all. The real weakness here wasn't technical. It wasn't a bug in the code. It was a bug in the process. It was a human vulnerability. The weak link was a single, dedicated, but completely under-supported and burned-out volunteer trying to maintain a critical piece of global infrastructure basically on his own. The attackers didn't exploit a program, they exploited a person. Now, to really put this into perspective, let's look at how this stacks up against other huge breaches you might have heard of, like SolarWinds or Log4j. Their impact was enormous, for sure, but the way they happened was different. SolarWinds, that was a compromised build server. Log4j, a vulnerability in a widely used library. But XZ, this was something else entirely. This was a trusted insider threat. The attacker didn't just find a flaw, they became a trusted developer. It's the difference between picking the lock on a door and having the owner hand you the keys with a smile. Okay, Section 6, Lessons from a Near Miss. So the big question is, where do we go from here? What do we do now? How does the entire open source community, and let's be honest, that's all of us, stop the next Jetan from actually succeeding? Well, the good news is the community is already on it, talking about and starting to implement some real defenses. We're seeing ideas like a two-person rule, which is common sense, right? No single person should be able to merge critical code. Another big one is reproducible builds. This is a way to cryptographically prove that the final package you download is an exact match of the public source code. If they had this, the backdoor would have been caught instantly. And maybe the most crucial lesson, we have to start paying attention to the human side of things. We need to monitor projects for social pressure and support maintainers to prevent the kind of burnout that opened the door for this attack. And you know, let's just bring this all the way back to the beginning. After all this talk of sophisticated actors and complex code, remember how this whole thing was found? This global, nation-state level threat, years in the making, it wasn't caught by some fancy AI or a multi-million-dollar security platform. It was found by one guy, one person, Andres Freund, who just got curious about a tiny half-second delay. Which really leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about, doesn't it? In this world where we're all racing to build more complex, more automated security systems, have we maybe started to forget about the power of a single curious human mind? Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that actually saved us this time. Simple, persistent human curiosity.